With me today is a very special guest. He's the new president of the Tibetan government in exile. He has been in various positions in the Tibetan society, including being the speaker of the Tibetan parliament in exile. So, welcome to WION, and it's pleasure having you with us. So, my first question, sir, an obvious one. You're the new president of the Tibetan government in exile here in India. Uh, what will be your key focus areas?
Yeah, one of the main focus area is to resolve the Sino-Tibet conflict through the middle way approach that was proposed by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and approved by the Tibetan Parliament in exile. Then the second focus is to look after the welfare of the Tibetan diaspora. But within that, as soon as I took over, the first issue that we needed to handle was the COVID cases within the Tibetan community in India, Nepal, and Bhutan. So yes, in terms of specific programs, there are quite a number, but in terms of the larger issues that we need to handle, resolving the Sino-Tibet conflict comes first.
Mhm. Resolving the conflict, do you think that China will be willing to resolve it, given the provocative behavior it has been engaging it, not only internally with, of course, in Tibet, but also externally with various countries, whether it's Japan or India? Do you think there is an intent in Beijing to talk to you?
I think many governments and many communities live in denial. The issue here is the Chinese government lives in denial that there is no Tibet issue or Tibet problem or Tibet conflict. Similar was the case with how they used to view the Uyghur case or the Mongolian case or the Hong Kong case. Now all those issues have become dominant in world politics, and Tibet issue has taken a little bit of a back seat because of the emerging situations in other parts of China. But the reality is that over the last 60 years, since Chinese occupation of Tibet, the aspiration of the Tibetan people have never been met. So as long as the ruler, the people who govern, don't understand the real aspiration of the people they rule, in terms of Tibet, it is to do with the Tibetan national identity, whether it's to do with Tibetan language, which came from India, or Tibetan religion, which came from India, or the larger issues of human rights in Tibet and in China as a whole, and environmental issues that concerns not only Tibet, but also the whole region of Southeast Asia. Those are issues that cannot be ignored. Therefore, we have a lot of hope and we remain positive that a sense of realization will happen in the minds of the Chinese leadership that these issues you just cannot wish away by hoping that His Holiness is now 86 and that he might die very soon, or and that the Tibetan issue will die because they can rule the Tibetans inside with an iron hand. So that wishful thinking is not going to work. I believe that the Chinese leadership will have to understand the real situation inside Tibet. The policies and programs that they are implementing inside Tibet are all aimed at eradication of Tibetan national identity. And it'll be our job to point out to the Chinese leaders that these policies and programs are not helpful for the Tibetan people as well as the Chinese government in the long run. In the short term, there might be some sense of satisfaction that they have been able to repress or put force on the Tibetans to refrain them from doing certain things that they don't want the Tibetans to do. But in the long run, this is definitely not going to work out. And over the last 60 years, they have realized that the loyalty of the Tibetan people inside Tibet lies with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Central Tibetan administration here, rather than the Chinese government. So that is also the reason why China is perhaps the only country who spends more money on internal security than external security. But we remain hopeful. We have to remain. If there is no hope, then there is no struggle.
Mhm. So now coming to India, we know that recently the Dalai Lama celebrated his birthday, and for the first time from the Indian side, there was an announcement that the Indian Prime Minister congratulated Dalai Lama. How do you see this development as a public acknowledgement by the Indian Prime Minister that there is conversation happening, or at least congratulatory conversation happening between both of them?
I have always been saying that it would be too naive on my part to advise the Indian government as to what they should be doing. But over the last 60 years, the kind of humanitarian support and the political support and programmatic support that the Indian government has extended to the Central Tibetan administration and its people in diaspora are enormous. So therefore, we remain ever grateful. But in terms of political positions, His Holiness used to say that India is overcautious when it comes to Tibet. And now, because of the certain emerging situation or the situation that has already developed over the last 1-2 years with Galwan or with Doklam and other issues, there is a sense of urgency within the Tibetan, within the Indian leadership, as well as the media and the people. A lot of interest as to what is happening and how Tibet comes into the play, because there was never ever a border before 1951 when the so-called 17-point agreement was enforced on the Tibetans through the threat of invasion by the Chinese Communist Party, People's Liberation Army. But at the same time, yeah, we are very, very grateful, and we know that the Indian government and particularly the Prime Minister has been wishing His Holiness the Dalai Lama over many years. It's not just Prime Minister Modi, but his predecessors as well. But this time the difference was that also because of technology, Prime Minister made it public and everybody got to know that, and that also sends a clear signal to the Chinese leadership as to where the relationship between the Indian government and His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan people are today. Yes, it is a development that sends a message. Yes.
Sends a messages also, sir. When it comes to the communication between the two sides, can we expect more communication, both sides being together? We know that there was a hesitation, at least after the Doklam crisis, in terms of public engagement with the Tibetans. Do you think that hesitation will be dropped with more engagements in coming few months and days?
Oh, the engagement between the Tibetans and the Indian government has been going on for many years. Just as I said before also, the visibility depends on the situation. But otherwise, engagement has been very, very strong. It's not something new that is going on. Therefore, now, because of the developing situation, it's becoming more visible, of course. The Indian government decides as to how they should go about it, and how we react to this is another issue. But in our heart of heart, in our mind of mind, we know that India is always there for us.
Mm-hmm. So India is going to host a Buddhist conference. This will be a first of its kind Buddhist conference very soon later this year. How do you see this development as, and will Dalai Lama be keen to participate in the Buddhist conference, in which there will be representations from all stakeholders when it comes to the Buddhism, not only here in India, but across the world and Asia as well?
The issue of religion or spirituality is not related to politics. So His Holiness devolved his political and administrative responsibilities in 2011. And since then, even now, he says, you do your job. My job will be to help humanity as much as I can. So therefore, and also the reason, because His Holiness is one of the most revered Buddhist leaders in the world. So naturally, all Buddhists, whether it's the Sanskrit tradition or the Pali tradition, has a lot of respect for His Holiness, and it would be ideal for His Holiness to be invited or to address such gatherings. That would be, I think, good for everybody, including the organizers as well as the attendees coming from different parts of the world.
Mhm. So let's go back to China again. How do you see China in the present scenario at a time when it's indulging in provocative behavior with its neighbors, especially with India? Do you think that the threat is something that needs to be dealt with, because China, it seems, is not able to perhaps understand what the world is expecting it from it, given the fact it's repeatedly, through many ways, questioning the rules-based order, the order that emerged after 1940s?
Yeah, China does not respect weakness. China respects strength. So I think India and also the rest of the world community understand how China views this. So India is also showing its strength, but not succumbing to the Chinese belligerents. And what China is doing today is completely not in tune with what they have been saying. The Chinese leadership have always been saying harmonious international relations, harmonious relation with its neighbors, harmonious relation within its people. But what they are saying and what they are doing are two different things. And unprovoked provocation through belligerent moves cannot sustain China's respectability. China has military power, China has political power, China has economic power, but the only thing they lack is moral power. And the only way they can win moral power is by being friendly with its neighbors, whether it's India or the countries around South China Sea or the East Asia or Europe or America, wherever it is. You cannot win friends by being violent with them. The only way you can win friends and also trust is by having cordial relations, relations that benefit the countries and the people of all the countries. So this is not happening right now. So I've been saying China is right now not on the right track.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the moral power it wants. Do you think it's trying to get that moral power by trying to usurp or take over the leadership of Buddhism? It is very keen to appoint the next Dalai Lama. I know it is something which is
Mm.
a debate for the future, but what do you have to say about that attempts by the Chinese to take over the leadership, whether it is Tibetan Buddhism or larger Buddhism in the world?
Everybody knows that whatever China does, particularly when it comes to religion, is to control organized groups which they perceive as a threat. But religious matters are purely religious matters. Spirituality is dependent on the individual's choice, not the government's choice. And the communist government who does not believe in religion cannot change the landscape of religion. So therefore, whatever China does, everybody knows in the world that they will be doing it only for political gains or for political purposes. The influence of His Holiness or the following of His Holiness has expanded over many years, over many decades, all around the world. Now it's not just dependent on the Tibetan people. His Holiness has followers in the Himalayan region, in the republics of Russia, in Mongolia, in now Far East, in the Southeast Asia, all over the world. So when it comes to recognition of the reincarnation of the 14th Dalai Lama, look for the 15th Dalai Lama, then this is a purely religious matter. And I've always been saying, if China is really interested in looking for reincarnations, then they should learn Buddhism first. And His Holiness had also said in jest that if the Chinese government is really serious, then they should look for Mao Zedong's reincarnation first, Deng Xiaoping second, and then maybe the Dalai Lamas. So when they don't believe in reincarnation, but now there is a paradox and irony of all these things. Like, when the journalist who recently went to Tibet found that You find portraits of Xi Jinping everywhere, whether it's in the monasteries or the office buildings or wherever. So in that sense, it sounds more like Xi Jinping also wants to be recognized as a Lama. That is what one Tibetan who was indoctrinated to say that has been saying again, sarcastically, that Xi Jinping is our guru. So, but that doesn't help, just the physical facade doesn't help. There has to be a deep understanding of what religion means. And for reincarnations, you have to believe in the concept of life after death. So when you yourself don't believe in the concept of life after death, why you want to interfere of a person's rebirth? That we all know it's for political reasons, but that is not going to work. What has happened with their own selection of Panchen Lama has not gained the kind of respect and from the Tibetan people, leave alone the rest of the world.
So my last question to you is, China, of course, has been a cause of concern, but there is another thing that has been cause of concern, that is the COVID crisis, the COVID pandemic, again originating, the first case originating from China. Do you think that there is need for more accountability from China on how this entire thing emerged? China, of course, hasn't been very transparent. We know what happened to the World Health Organization teams as well. What is your view in terms of China vis-a-vis the COVID crisis emanating from that country and lack of transparency as well?
This is a common trait of the Communist Party, that whenever they make a statement, it's based on lies, and then they build lies upon lies and say it 100 times, and they believe the lie will also become truth. Unfortunately, that is not the way how it works today. Maybe they can control the media and information flow within China, but it's not possible to control the media flow outside. So I'm not a scientist. I don't know how it originated or how it spread, but there is definitely general understanding that China has not been transparent from the very beginning. So it's not just with the pandemic. The very reason why one of their doctors died who spread the news was also a pointer to that effect. So it's not just the SARS or the COVID-19 that were bungled at the initial stage. It applies to all levels, whether it's political or religious or financial. Nobody tends to believe China because they are not being truthful. So without trust, you cannot build real friendship. So China has to learn its lessons from the past and make sure that they become more accountable to the world community. Everybody expected China to change, but they always come with anything with whether it's religion or market economy with Chinese characteristics. So, so far they got away with it, but in the long run, I don't think this will work.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for speaking to WION on several subjects: China, relationship, of course, with the Indian government, and of course, the COVID pandemic as well. Perhaps in future, we will have an in-person interview once the COVID pandemic is gone. But as of now, it looks like a far cry, given that it's still a major cause of worry. Thank you so much, sir.